Yeah, indeed, and that's probably a no-no, right? But Dean, which sort of begs the question: as advanced as China's space program seems to be, how much of it has been bluntly ripped off or stolen? Because if you take a look, say, 2 levels down, their aerospace program, a lot of their military aircraft, their fighters, look suspiciously like ours.
Well, some of that is physics, right? I mean, you'll notice Chinese rockets look like other people's rockets, but that's in part because rockets all kind of look alike. The Chinese have employed a variety of methods to get technology. In some cases, they purchase it legally. When the Soviet Union went belly up, they bought a lot of Russian space technology. Some of it is basically researched on their own. It's useful to remember China's space program began when they had no relations with either the Soviets or the Americans. Some of it does appear to be, frankly, stolen, and some of it is quite innovative. If you take a look at China's manned spacecraft, for example, it looks like a Soyuz, but it's significantly larger and more capable.
So I think one of the biggest changes over the last, not even 10 years, maybe 7, even 5 years, right, with the U.S. space program is how privatized or corporatized it's become. I'm thinking here of SpaceX, Elon Musk, etc. So you pit Xi Jinping and the PLA against people like Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos, for that matter, and does that give the U.S. a leg up?
Absolutely. But it's also why the Chinese are pushing commercial space development as well. Some of it is really a stalking horse for their state-owned enterprises. X-Space looks pretty much like an extension of China Aerospace Science and Industry Corporation, which is a state-owned enterprise. But some of it does seem to be private companies. The Chinese recognize that private companies are more innovative, more flexible, more agile. They want to tap into that, and they've got a bunch of billionaires and millionaires that they would like to harness to that.
Dean, longer term, exploration for mining and resources in space, is that going to be an area of contention?
Well, this is one of those interesting questions. How far do property rights extend? The legal basis for it is kind of spotty. The Outer Space Treaty, which everyone has signed, both the U.S. and China, does seem to impose some limits, but who would enforce that? So right now it's all theoretical, but the minute somebody actually lassos an asteroid, say with gold or rare earths, and brings it back to Earth and starts exploiting it, you're going to start seeing an interesting race and a legal question about ownership and how that's handled.
And it's not just the United States and China, is it? We've got the Japanese, the South Koreans and the Indians as well, all pushing quite aggressively. So on balance, who do you think has the edge here?
I think that as somebody who works for the Heritage Foundation, I firmly believe that private enterprise has a significant role to play in all this. But let me note also that space is going to create some really interesting alliances. There was an earlier mission this week that was launching a United Arab Emirates probe to Mars, but it went up on a Japanese rocket, an H-2 rocket out of Tanegashima, and it included parts from the United States. So that's a much more, in many ways, multinational effort. It was also, I think, an interesting political message to China that American parts will go on Arab and Japanese space systems, but not on Chinese.
Oh, interesting.
Isn't this all simply, and let me just be absolutely blunt here, isn't this just a monumental battle of national egos? Is there any real commercial terrestrial application of the innovation and the experiments and the research that's done in outer space?
You have a cell phone?
Yes, I do.
Do you have a cell phone? Right. Do you think any of that technology might have gotten a bit of acceleration from all of the various space programs and the emphasis on miniaturization? Do you think any of the interesting materials, plastics, polymers, etc., might have had something to do with the effort to reduce weight? Do you think that GPS, which is on your phone, is related to the space program, because that's a satellite network that tells you where you are, and the timing that you folks are constantly using to report on financial deals is all based off of the GPS timing system. So space touches all of our lives, most often in ways that we may not even realize.
Okay, I think that's the issue.
Granted, Dean, and we can continue this conversation, but as we started out, there seems to be quite a dangerous move towards the militarization of space, but that's another discussion all the same. Fascinating conversation, Dean. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. Dean Cheng there from the Heritage Foundation.